So a while back, I made a video talking about a few common misconceptions people have about the X-Men which really annoy me. That video did surprisingly well, actually, and to quote Melinda Kathleen Reese, when something does well on the internet, you do it again. So I thought of a couple more misconceptions that I wanted to share, and also some of y'all shared some in the comments of the last video, so I thought I'd go ahead and clear up a few more commonly held but incorrect beliefs about the X-Men.
Let's go ahead and start with all the misconceptions for which we can blame the movies. Here are two from Frauer001, hope I pronounced that correctly. The first of which is that Sabretooth and Wolverine are somehow biologically related to one another. If you have ever seen the cinematic masterpiece titled X-Men Origins Wolverine, then you know that within that film, Wolverine and Sabretooth are depicted as brothers. As a result of that, and due to the fact that they have a very famous rivalry, many people believe that they are also related in the comics, whether as brothers or in some other way. This is, however, not true. Yes, they are rivals, and yes, they have a lot of history, but they are not actually related to each other in any way.
This is an interesting one because it's actually almost true. Chris Claremont, who wrote the X-Men for 14 years, originally planned to reveal that Sabretooth was actually Wolverine's father, but he stopped writing the X-Men before he had the chance to do so. However, when he wrote the non-canon limited series X-Men Forever, he did incorporate that into the story. So this misconception isn't entirely unfounded, but it still definitely isn't true.
The second one that Frauer shared is the idea that Magneto and Mystique are allies. The movies definitely started this idea, but it was reinforced by later adaptations such as X-Men Evolution. People get the idea that Mystique is Magneto's second-in-command, or even his lover, thanks to these depictions, but in reality, Magneto and Mystique have never worked together or even liked each other. They often share similar goals and have both led iterations of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, but never together.
In fact, as Frau shared, the first time that Magneto and Mystique met, she tried to arrest him. So definitely not allies. I can somewhat understand why the adaptations do this for the reasons that I said before, but honestly, I think it'd be more interesting to see more of Mystique working on her own. And this is coming from someone who hates Mystique. Regardless, this isn't the most annoying misconception, but it still definitely isn't true. This next one is courtesy of Alucard, Prince of Gay Vampires, what a name, and it is that Magneto is British, or at least that he speaks with a British accent.
This is, again, the fault of the movies, and Wolverine and the X-Men helped perpetuate it. This idea is really weird to me because it is an essential, inseparable element of Magneto's character that he is a German Jew who was in Auschwitz in Poland in his childhood. And after escaping Auschwitz, he moved to Ukraine, after which he went to Israel, and then finally he came to America. So basically, Magneto has spent no significant amount of time in any part of Great Britain, definitely not enough time to develop an accent of any sort. And as for what accent he should have, presumably some sort of German one, since that is his native tongue. The only reason I can think of the movies depicting him with a British accent is basically the same reason I thought of for them giving Professor X one, because he was played by Sir Ian McKellen, and I guess they didn't want him to change his accent.
It's just so weird because, as I said before, and as Alucard said in his comment, Magneto's nationality and ethnic background are such essential elements of his identity as a character. There is nothing British about him.
And it's not like the movies weren't aware of this. Literally, the first scene of the first X-Men movie is little baby Max Eisenhart first discovering his powers in Auschwitz, and they really leaned into that element of Magneto's character in all of his subsequent appearances, so it's just weird. And Ian McKellen is like a legendary thespian. I'm sure he could have put on a convincing German accent. So yeah, this one just confuses me, but the Master of Magnetism is anything but British. I don't know if this next one is as much of a misconception as it is simply something that people don't really know, but the movies definitely do not help clear up any confusion in this area. As everyone knows at this point, Storm is one of my favorite characters, and one of her defining attributes is her gorgeous white hair. One has to wonder, however, where did it come from? Is it dyed? Is it a byproduct of her mutation? Did it come from a power-up by Apocalypse, as the movies would have you believe?
Well, the answer is in fact none of the above. Aurora's hair and eyes are 100% natural, but they are not at all linked to her mutation. She is of royal descent on her mother's side, and white hair and blue eyes just happen to run in the family. Again, I think most people don't really have a set belief on how Storm got her hair, they just don't know where it came from, and the movies are just generally misleading.
Especially since they don't even give her blue eyes, and the fact that her hair is typically more gray than it is white, it just makes it seem less natural. This is more just an excuse for me to talk about Storm a little bit, but I felt it was worth clearing up nonetheless.
Our next two misconceptions are from Alexandre Fauché, again, hope I said your name right, and the first one is that Apocalypse is the first mutant. This is a widespread belief and one that Apocalypse himself supports, but it is not actually true. It is in fact unknown who the first mutant was, but there was at least one who was part of the Stone Age Avengers, yes, that's a thing, and she was the first host for the Phoenix Force, apparently.
The main character, however, who disproves Apocalypse's claim is Selene, who has been alive for approximately 17,000 years, about 12,000 more than Apocalypse was alive for. She appears to be the oldest living mutant, but who knows, Marvel could come out with a comic tomorrow revealing that there's one who's even older.
I really wanted to get a hard and fast answer for this, but reading through the mutant history page on the Marvel database was a struggle, and the fact is that it simply has not been revealed yet. So yeah, I totally get why people would believe that Apocalypse is the first mutant since the comics themselves are promoting false information, but despite Apocalypse's superiority complex, he is not at all the first mutant. The next one that Alexandra shared is that Cyclops shoots lasers or heat beams out of his eyes. I was literally almost done editing the first Misconceptions video when I thought of this one, but it was too late, so I'm glad that I can include it here. Regardless, this is a very common belief, but a very incorrect one, and we can thank games like LEGO Marvel Superheroes for perpetuating it. Scott Summers shoots red beams out of his eyes, so most people assume that they are either lasers or heat beams, kind of like what Superman does. In reality, however, Psyche fires off what the comics call concussive force beams. Basically, if they hit a metal door, they won't melt it, they'll break it.
To their credit, the movies do actually depict Scott's powers correctly, as do all the cartoon adaptations. As far as I know, it's just in some of the games that it's done incorrectly, but if y'all know of anywhere else that this is present, I'd like to hear about it. I think when most people say Cyclops shoots lasers, they're really just going off of the color, and they just haven't paid attention to how his powers actually work. But to set the record straight, it's not a laser.
I've got one final misconception for the road, and it is that Emma Frost is British. Yeah, another accent-related one, but this isn't just a case of the adaptations confusing people.
Emma is depicted with an American accent in both the animated series and in First Class, but with a British one in Wolverine and the X-Men. So, which adaptation is more comic accurate? It might surprise you, but the answer is Wolverine and the X-Men. That's right, in the comics Emma does speak with a British accent. However, she's not from England, she's from Boston. So now you're probably even more confused, but this isn't just the case of the comics being inconsistent. Not entirely, anyway.
I was also perplexed by this, and Marjorie and I had to do a little bit of digging to find answers, but as it turns out there are kind of two explanations. The first one is that Emma is straight up faking the accent because she's a snob. That's simple enough, but the second explanation is a little more complicated.
To make a long story short, when Emma was in college, she got in a fight with another telepath and she partially absorbed their psyche. That telepath just so happened to be English, so Emma may have picked up on their accent. I don't think that's been explicitly confirmed by the comics though, it's just something that makes sense.
So yeah, in the end, I wouldn't blame you for thinking Emma Frost is British since the comics themselves aren't helping with the confusion, but the fact is that she is American, she just doesn't sound like one. Alright, I think that wraps up this round of misconceptions. I was a little less cranky this time, but I'm very glad that I could help clear these up. Once again, if you thought of any other common misinformation about the X-Men that you would like to share in the comments, please do so. It was nice to finally make an X-Men video again. It's definitely been a minute. I will hopefully be making more, but I will probably be sticking to the one video a month schedule for the foreseeable future, so we'll see what happens. I've got some plans, but I can't promise anything. But nevertheless, thank you for watching. A special thank you to all of you who contributed, and I will see you next time.